Hello, and thank you for tuning in. You are tuned in to The Encourager, and my name is Nathan. During our angel number reading this morning, I mentioned that on my walk today, I was feeling the energy of business and the need to talk about business. It's still fairly early where I am in the day, so perhaps I'll be actually talking to someone today about business. I don't know. But I can't honestly imagine who that would be because I changed my number. And no one has it, so I don't know who would be contacted, unless they email me, I guess. But anyway, so I am a former tax accountant. And I wasn't a tax accountant for 13 years, but I held various roles. Bookkeeper, tax preparer is the way that it started out. I started out in 2009, 10, while I was in school. I was in school to be an accountant. I was in an accounting degree program at that time, and got hired on for my first tax season with Liberty Tax, and went through their training, and the IRS had just started, or was just about to start, issuing PINs. They were going to be requiring that compensated tax preparers be registered, and you used to have to pay a licensing fee or a renewal fee. But that has since been done away with, and you just have to maintain that active IRS tax preparer's license number, which mine is active currently. And so I've been self-employed truly since 2011. I first incorporated my first company, Debits and Credits, Inc. I incorporated that company in December of 2011. And but what ended up happening was I did that, even though I was still in school, I did that really kind of out of desperation, because I knew enough then to at least start like bookkeeping and that sort of thing. So that's what the plan was. But that really fell apart, and money dried up faster during the Great Recession than I could earn. And so I ended up relocating temporarily to Norcross, Georgia, with a gentleman who I grew up with, and was up there for a little while. But anyway, and I was a tax accountant at an engineering firm up there, and did some work for Waste Pro. They are as the name implies, a waste disposal company, much like Waste Management, the garbage pickup company. So, so both of those were accounting roles, both of which, in the majority of the W-2 roles that I've been in, I have been in solo roles. So, for instance, the company that I was with after my kidney transplant, my only W-2 job after the kidney transplant was with a direct mail marketing company. They're one of the companies that mail out the big old cards for the dealerships that tells you to scratch this off, or this key, come to the dealership because it might go to your brand new Porsche or something like that, right? I worked for a company that created that false advertising, unfortunately. And so I did understand it as that back then, but yeah. Today I wouldn't even accept an opportunity with a company like that, because that's fraud. They're lying. So, but anyway, I got that job after transplant, and I actually interviewed for it before the kidney transplant. The kidney transplant, so it's 7/7/17, which coming up to 7 years, that's extremely important on a 7-year portal, right? 7/7 is the 7 portal, new moon portal. All of that's important for me in my journey here. And so anyway, an opportunity came up. I've always wanted to be business owner. I've always been entrepreneurial minded. I remember even growing up, before we relocated from Illinois to Chicago, we would go to Chicago for sporting events or to other educational events, Museum of Science and Industry, Brookfield Zoo, Lincoln Park Zoo. There's all sorts. So when we would go, and I remember I was always fascinated by all the skyscrapers, and my mind would run wild with the business that was going on there and all of that. I've always been business focused. I've always been business whatever focused. A couple of people that I follow on LinkedIn, including Barbara Corcoran, and so there's a lot of people that I follow after, or I watch, or that sort of thing, and pay attention to a lot of what's not being said, and reading, because the way that the tax laws are is the tax laws are written in such a way to benefit those who are making the tax laws. And so in order to take advantage of those tax laws, you either have to educate yourself or get connected to someone who is educated in those areas. Okay? So how do the wealthy 1% stay the wealthy 1% and continue to expand that great gulf between poverty and wealthy here in America? How does that keep growing? Because the wealthy are making the laws that benefit them. They know that it's wise to put your money in a trust if with large sums of money, okay? Property and that sort of thing. Someone like, what's that guy's name down in Tampa that was murdered for his money? He won a lot of Shakespeare. William Shakespeare. That guy, right? Nobody told, well, the wrong person told him that he need information, right? So that poverty-minded man who won all of this money, and again, that's nothing against him, okay? He was a giver. He had a beautiful heart, but he had no boundaries, okay? We know about boundaries, don't we? Those of us who are aligned, and those of us who understand that without boundaries, your life is chaotic and you allow people to run amok, okay? All over you, all right? So, Shakespeare did not have these boundaries in place, and this woman swooped in. I don't remember her name. This woman swooped in, and it's an infamous case, like many of them in Florida, unfortunately. Florida's known for that. So, so she comes in, unalives him, buries him in cement on her property, I believe. I haven't heard the story in a long time. I believe her property. And then came up with some crazy excuse about gangsters and all of that who buried him on her property. Okay, yeah, all right. Sure. Okay? She's rotting in jail, thank goodness. Okay? So, the difference between William Shakespeare, or Shakespeare, I don't know if his first name's William or not. It might be. No. I don't know what his first name is. It's Shakespeare is his last name, I think. Anyway. So, this guy, the difference between him and Ross Perot or Bill Clinton or Barack Obama are the advisors that he has or lack of in his corner. That's the difference. Same thing with those gentlemen. If you take away their advisors, people write their speeches, right? We know that, right? So what do they really know in and of themselves without someone writing it for them? That's why the president is a puppet for the real Illuminati that's controlling shit, for the real skull and bones that's controlling shit. The presidential seat in America, that's nothing but a puppet. That's a face. Okay, that's a face. So, over the 13 years, I've learned a few key things, okay, that I know that we are constantly being lied to about when it comes to small businesses, okay, a small business ownership, small business management, what have you. Okay, the largest company that I ever had on books was a $170 million company. It was a software company, or it is a software company. Okay, so the first thing is in regards to the types of entities. Okay, so let's talk about the types of entities available here in the U.S. So you can be a sole proprietor through your social security number. Okay. With that, you will incur a 15.3% self-employment tax on top of whatever other self-employment income you have coming in, or tax based on that money you have coming in. So, if you got $100 that you did from this lawn job, let's say you cut somebody's grass, get $100. From that $100, there's a regular tax that you have to pay, regular income tax. Then on top of that, you have to pay 15.3%. So you're giving them another $15.30 from your $100 on top of, right, wherever your regular income tax rate is. So if you're at 12%, you're now at 25.3%. Or excuse me, 27.3%. Okay? So, when we're looking at the tax situation and when it comes to entities, a sole proprietor, a single member LLC, not a partnership, a single member LLC, incur what is called self-employment tax. So all of these commercials on YouTube telling you it's easy to start an LLC, they are bending you over, okay? And here's why. Because they're not telling you about the 15.3% self-employment tax that you're going to have to pay on top of whatever your income tax bracket happens to be. So let's say your spouse makes $100,000 a year. Your spouse makes $100,000 a year, you're self-employed. Okay? She's already having probably 30 grand taken out of her paycheck at $100,000. With medical, 401k and all that stuff. She's having a lot taken out. A quarter of her paycheck. Okay? All right? Unless she's adjusted that on her W-4. Okay? So the IRS is already getting 25 grand. Let's just make it even. Easy number. 25 grand, let's say. So your household income knocked down to 75 grand. And that's net before anything is paid. You got a mortgage, probably got a car payment, maybe 2 or 3. Right? So this is what the average American looks like today. The average American leaves their house at 7:30 in the morning, 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning, a house that is over mortgaged, into a car that they stop at a gas station to put gas in that's overpriced, in a vehicle that is now upside down, on their way to a job which does not pay them enough or their worth in order to keep up with this trend, this American dream. This is what the average American's life looks like today. 1444 on the timer. Okay? People go to work today to pay bills. They don't go to work to enjoy life. And I don't mean life at the job. That would be nice. You should. If you don't enjoy that, I encourage you to change the job and perspective, whichever needs to change. Okay? But people are working to pay bills. People are not working to enjoy life. And that's the problem with a just over broke. That's a job. That's a problem with those systems. Okay? That's the problem with those. So, with the business entities, you have a couple of options that can get you out of this 15.3% self-employment tax situation. The first is to be a partnership, okay, or 1065 is the tax form, okay? A partnership. You and your spouse, whether they have an active part in the business or not, okay? They don't have to have or be a material participant, okay? They can be a silent partner, right? I heard somebody cheer, woohoo, about a spouse being a silent partner. But anyway, hopefully not. Hopefully your relationship is such where it's bountiful when you work with your spouse, not a pain. And if that is, again, all of that needs to be worked out spiritually and energetically. That is stuff right there that you all need to work out amongst yourselves, okay? So, the other option is to be an S corporation. So you can file your EIN, or if you have an EIN already, whether that's an LLC or a sole proprietor, what have you, whatever the EIN is, as long as it's not your social security number. If you already have an EIN, you can fill out what is a Form 2553. That form is an election to request to be taxed as a different type of entity. Okay? So, if you are an LLC or a sole proprietor, you would fill that form out and you would mark accordingly which entity, in this case, we're talking about an S corporation. So let's say you're an LLC, you want to be taxed as an S corporation. Okay? So the IRS, it's a request, okay? So it's not an automatic thing, although I've run into very few issues with this over the years. In fact, I've never had one rejected. So again, typically they're accepting of it, okay? If you're a nonprofit, then there's probably a conversation that needs to be had, because a nonprofit is handled very differently, and a nonprofit is a completely different animal. A nonprofit is 10 times more detailed than a for-profit entity is. And the IRS has it set up that way for a reason, okay? So, with that, I will say this also. The most audited form today in the IRS is a Schedule C. A Schedule C is a sole proprietor or single member LLC business. That is the most audited form in the IRS and has been for several years now, because the IRS does not trust you, John Schmo, Susie Schmo, to keep good accounting records and to be honest. So they don't trust you. This is another reason why they instill the 15.3% self-employment tax on LLCs and single member entities, because they are easy to form. They are not a tax entity, okay? An LLC is not a tax entity. An LLC, single member, only protects your assets, business from personal. That's all it does, and it creates very little separation with that, like just enough separation. You need insurance and other things to create more separation. Again, there are many other tools that can be used to separate assets, okay, business and personal, etc. So this is why they put this 15.3% rule in there, and it is to make sure that they get something no matter what. And this is how strong this rule is in their whole algorithm whatever thing. Okay, let's take that $100,000 that you make self-employed. Okay? Self-employed, gross $100,000. Okay? And this is after expenses, but not before taxes. Okay? $100,000. With that $100,000, you could have, let me correct that. Before expenses. I think I said after expenses. Before expenses. So we have not subtracted anything, right? So gross $100,000. You could have $130,000 in loss. All of your equipment, everything, right? You start taking all of that into consideration. You start taking depreciation and maybe take a couple Section 179s, which is accelerated depreciation that you can take advantage of the first year that an asset is put into service, and all that to help you lower your tax liability. And again, that's just another tax strategy that you could use if things are lopsided one year, okay? And so you need to find up ways to lower your tax liability. That is one, okay? So, but with this $100,000 gross, $130,000 loss, you will still owe the IRS 15.3%. That will not change. In any tax software, no matter what you do, you will still owe the IRS 15.3%. That is how strong that 15.3% self-employment tax is in their, again, algorithm, system, whatever, equation. Okay? I've seen it time and time again. I've seen twice the amount of expenses, twice the amount of loss against revenue, and still owed because of 15.3% self-employment tax, because of self-employment, or because they were a sole proprietor or a single member LLC. This is what all these 15-second guru videos, hey, it's easy to start your LLC. Just go to buzzme.com and we'll help you set it up. It's really easy. It's free. All you'll have to pay is the state fee. Meanwhile, again, you're getting bent over come time to file taxes because what that person didn't tell you, or what you didn't do your due diligence on, was the complete story. So it's best, if you already have an entity, to file the 2553 and request to have your single member LLC or sole proprietorship taxed as an S corporation. Okay? If you are currently operating at a loss, don't worry about that. First of all, because you have with an S corporation, the tax regulation states that you need to pay yourself a reasonable salary. Okay, and this is why I say that if you are currently at a loss with your business, it's okay, because when the IRS barks loud but rarely actually bites, they give ample opportunities. They very rarely actually bite. Okay? More than enough opportunity to correct things, correspond, all of that sort of thing. If you're needing assistance with that, you should probably look into a CPA or tax attorney. A CPA, tax attorney, and IRS enrolled agent are the three individuals that can represent a U.S. taxpayer before the IRS in court. Okay? Or represent someone against the IRS in court, I guess is the way I should say it. Okay? A CPA, certified public accountant, IRS enrolled agent, or a tax attorney. Okay? As far as audits and things like that, additional occupations can do, obviously, auditors and tax accountants and accountants. You know, just an accountant can do an audit. You know, it's just so. But again, for representation, just so that you're aware, if you were not aware, those are the three occupations or 3 credentialed professionals that can represent you before the courts. Okay? Pertaining to the IRS. So, moving on. So, the next thing to do, so you have this idea, you have this great thing, your gift, your ability, your talent, that you want to share with the world. What next? Once you get your business up, you're an S Corp. You can also, when you start your business, you can also immediately file to be taxed as an S Corporation. You don't have to be an LLC first. Maybe someone had that question. Okay? So you can immediately go to the IRS when you go to apply for an EIN and select S Corporation on their website, irs.gov, G-O-V. Okay? And in the search engine block in the upper right, last time I was on the website, is the search engine block, and you could just type in EIN there, and you can apply for it online. Okay? It is free. All right? So you have the business idea, you have the EIN now, the S Corporation, the right structure. Okay? You're ready to move forward. The next thing that you will need to do is register with your state. Your state has registration requirements as far as whatever that's concerned. Most of the businesses that I dealt with were based in Florida. I prepared taxes for, I've never prepared taxes for all 50 states in 1 year, but I've prepared taxes for multiple states and expats and so on and so forth. So, yeah, right. So, as well as foreign taxes and trust 1041s and that sort of thing. So, once you have your entity up and going, then you want to register with your state. In Florida, depending on the type of entity you are, it's either $70 or like $125-ish or something, and they have an annual renewal. Your state might also have an annual renewal. They probably do. It's another way that they get business, or another way that they get business, or get funds, I should say, from businesses in their area. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. We trust it's going to get used for roads and public buildings and parks and that sort of thing. And so once the registration's done, you want to make sure that you are abiding by whatever state regulations as far as reporting is concerned. Okay? Your state might require you to report a 941. Other states may not. You may be required to report or you will be required to report employment taxes if you have employees, or you put yourself on a W-2 when you start becoming profitable, which again, the IRS for S Corporation, the IRS regulation states that based on your revenue, a reasonable salary. Okay? So don't think you're getting out of something if, let's say your S Corporation now does $100,000, okay? First year success, right out of the gate, $100,000, and you pay yourself $25,000, okay? You're not doing yourself any favors by paying yourself less, because on the revenue side for an S Corporation, it is what is called a pass-through entity. That means whatever the revenue or loss from the business for that tax year passes through, in this case, the 1120S for an S Corporation, the 1120S, and passes right on through to your 1040 and goes on line 8 or 9 or something like that on your 1040. They changed those forms. I forget what line number it is this year. Or what it was last year for this past tax season. So, okay, and so that number is going to go in there. So let's say it's $50,000, 25 in expenses, 25 in salary to yourself, which you did have some taxes withheld, and then 50 left over. Okay, after all of expenses and everything. That $50,000 is also going to roll over onto your 1040, like I said, as a pass-through entity from that S corporation. So you will be paying taxes on that 50 grand. So don't think just because you're paying yourself a lesser salary as an S corporation entity and owner, treating yourself like an employee, which is the correct way to do it. Even if you're an LLC, you need to treat yourself as an employee. If cash flow is such to do that, even if it's a couple $100s a month, you need to do that. Okay? So, again, it's just another way to pay. It's an easier way to pay taxes than worrying about it at the end of the year or every quarter, especially if you are trying to navigate these waters yourself, meaning you are trying to pay your taxes yourself, you're trying to do all of this yourself. If you are a business owner of any sort, or you have a side hustle, I strongly, unless you have a background in this, or your spouse does, or a son or daughter does, I strongly suggest you find a professional to handle your accounting and your bookkeeping, or at least to look them over once a month or something, because if you don't, there is a huge chance that you are doing something that you are not a professional at or well knowledgeable in. And so because of that, you are really leaving a lot of money on the table and selling yourself short when it comes to your tax situation each and every year. Okay? So, once you have your entity set up, you want to get some type of accounting system set up and established. Set up your chart of accounts within that accounting system. QuickBooks you can download QuickBooks app. You can use Sage. I've used also Thomson Reuters, which is like the Cadillac of accounting software, which is Accounting CS. I've used Drake accounting software and Drake tax software. In fact, I've used Drake tax software for the last couple of years. Yeah. So, again, I really felt the need to talk about business today for a reason. There is a reason why I'm talking about it. For many of us, the divine masculines, divine feminines, those of us who identify as that, earth angels, star seeds, light workers, those of us who are on a certain timeline, we're about to walk into a new level of abundance out of whatever level of poverty that our karmic energy, family, whatever has kept us in. Okay, and with that, there's going to be new opportunity, but we need to be educated so that we don't end up like, Abraham Shakespeare. Thank you, universe. Abraham Shakespeare is his name. Abraham Shakespeare, the guy who was unalived by the woman in Florida. Abraham Shakespeare. Yeah. So we don't end up like Abraham Shakespeare. Okay? Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. If you have questions in regards to this, I do have a business email address, but you can send your questions to the same email address as any spiritual questions you might have or what have you, and that is theencourager333@gmail.com. Okay? Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Again, I'm former tax accountant. I officially had my last tax season this past, and perhaps for years to come there'll be tax returns here and there that I do, and I'll always stay up on that because it helps me. Being an entrepreneur myself, it helps me. So I'll always stay up on the tax laws and the ways that they can benefit me. And so anyway, again, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be encouraged.